we've seen a rise in depression for the last few decades, really. And I think that part of that is because of, the field of psychology and behavioral health improving and more people are being diagnosed because we know more about it. But I also think that modern society is creating depression for people. I think at the end of the day, most people are depressed because and hate their lives because they hate their jobs. Today, in today's world, if you don't work 40 to 60 hours a week, you cannot pay your bills on time. There's just no way to do it. There's very few people who can escape the 9 to 5 grind. Some people are going to do it through things like social media. Some people are going to do it through entrepreneurship. But the majority of people have to work full time or work multiple jobs to be able to pay their bills. And when we look for jobs, we don't typically look for something that makes us happy. It's not like people want to go find, a job just because that's fun for them or fulfilling for them. Sometimes you have older people who do because they want something to do to get out of the house or things like that. But for the most part, people are stuck in jobs that they hate. And the thing is, it's one thing if you go find a job, but if you're mistreated or if you're disrespected or whatever it is, you can leave the job and then you can go home and relax because you're retired. It's another thing entirely when you rely on a job so much that if you lose it, you're going to be homeless or you're going to lose your credit score or you're not going to have the same quality of life. A lot of people get stuck in jobs because they have to take care of their families. They have to take care of themselves. And to me, that is the main source of pain and emotional stress for, I'd say, the overwhelming majority of people, not only in the United States of America, but worldwide. The modern system has created a slave mindset for most people. There are things that you take from your supervisor or from other people at work that you would never take from another human being. You would never take that level of disrespect or unkindness or even unwillingness to listen to you or whatever it is. But you have to. You're forced to. When you're at a job, you have to show up every single day at a certain time. You have to be there for a certain amount of time. And you have to listen to people that may not even be as smart as you, right? In positions of power over you. And they can tell you what to do and treat you how they want to treat you and get away with it. I don't see, this epidemic of people not knowing how to be happy anymore and not knowing how to find happiness out of life. I think people still want to live, I hate to sound like a cliche, but people still want to live, laugh, and love. They can't do it anymore because financially life has just gotten so much harder and it gets harder and harder every day. People talk about a livable wage and making, 25 or $30 an hour. The overwhelming majority of people in this country do not make probably even $20 an hour. And even working 2 jobs at that salary, if you've got 2 kids and a wife or vice versa, 2 kids and a husband, you can't pay all your bills with that kind of salary. And then when you get home from working, 2 jobs and you're working 60 hours a week, how do you enjoy time with your family without being completely stressed out the entire time and thinking about money and thinking about having to go back to work the next day? How do you enjoy life that way? And if you can't enjoy life that way, how do you not be depressed? How do you maintain your happiness? We're giving all kinds of drugs to people, serotonin reuptake and everything else like that. And at this point, I really don't think it's about drugs. I don't think it's about medicine. I don't think it's about therapy. I think it's about the lifestyles that people have to live. If you work 60 hours a week for 50 weeks a year, and you can't even take a vacation in those 2 weeks off because you don't have enough money, how do you enjoy life like that? If you can't take your kids to, the trampoline park or to, Disneyland or someplace nice, when you have some days off, how do you enjoy time with your kids when you know that you can't afford time with your kids? Every second that you spend with your kid, you're thinking about money and how you're going to be able to pay the light bill or how you're going to be able to pay for medical insurance for them or for their new books for school, I think that the main source of unhappiness in today's world is having jobs that you hate. I think that people are tired of getting up and working at jobs that they hate. And I don't know what the solution is there. Maybe AI and robotics is gonna maybe AI and robotics is gonna change that. Elon Musk says that nobody's gonna have to work and there's gonna be a basic, standard income. I don't know if that's the case. I'm not sure why the government would just give people money to sit on to sit on their asses, and do nothing. I don't know. It's possible because if you think about it, there could be requirements for a basic income, like educational requirements. You could have a country that's actually way more educated than any group of people in history, because all that time that people are working, if AI and robotics are doing that, you could have people learning that entire time, or for at least half of it. Let's say 20 hours a week, you have to learn instead of working a 9 to 5. And then we have hundreds of millions of people that know about physics and how to fix robots and how to code and all these different things, because they have educational requirements instead of working requirements. So I think that could be a good way to do it. But at the end of the day, I just feel like working a 9 to 5 is not conducive to happiness. Even if it is a job that you love, if you have a family, if you have friends, if you have kids, that you can't spend time with because you have to be at work, then even if it's something that you love doing, it's still taking away from something that you love probably doing even more. If you could not be working 40 to 60 hours a week and instead be spending time with your kids or spending time with your spouse or family members and friends, wouldn't you take that? So, I don't know. Just a thought.